Nice. Yeah, dude. Nice recovery. Nice, Bill. Yeah, buddy. Let's go. Nice boof, dude. Yeah, dude. Nice. Woo!
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Just as a heads up, in the coming videos, you're going to see a lot of longboat footage. I got my hands on a Dagger Vanguard, and just as a matter of sort of variation and trying new things, I've been paddling it a lot. Now, I'm a big guy to begin with, so I paddle large boats, and when I got a play boat, it really unlocked a lot of different moves and sort of feelings and strokes on the river because I was used to paddling 9-foot plus boats. All of a sudden, here I am in a large rock star that's 7 feet long. So we met up with a bunch of people for a big group paddle down Little Falls, pretty chill level, 3 feet on the gauge. And I've got this 12-foot boat, which I've mostly just paddled upstream, you know, attaining up from anglers, that kind of thing. But I'm going to try and use it downriver and see what it can teach me about kayaking and boat control and placement and edges and all of that good stuff. Just a little bit about the boat. Basically, longboats were designed to have a lot of contact with the water because they were made for racing. So they're really good at going in a straight line, really good for attaining, but also not very maneuverable because if you don't have a lot of rocker at the front and back of the boat, it can be really challenging to execute quick turns and do things like boofs without plugging over drops or burying your bow. Now, whitewater racing evolved a lot since, for example, Dagger's Green Boat came out, and you have Liquid Logic Stinger, the Piranha 12R, for example. These are all longboats. And Dagger, reacting to the nature of whitewater racing, which became a lot more steep. You see things like the Green River Narrows race, like really class 5 creaking. And Dagger decided to make a longboat that would be good at that. So basically what it did was took a long boat and then gave it modern boat features like a bunch of bow and stern rocker, which make it boofable, easier to turn on a dime if you need to, that kind of thing. while it does sacrifice some of the speed of tracking in a straight line along flat boat, it's really designed to run whitewater. And so it's not the fastest boat in the world, but it's the fastest boat that can easily maneuver downstream around tricky obstacles. And so that's where this boat shines. I'm not good enough to paddle it on stuff like that. I'm not even paddling stuff like Class 5 creeks yet. But I find that it is truly different to paddle, and I think it teaches me some stuff. So as this video progresses and I release the next few, I'm going to be talking about what it's like to paddle that longer boat. The first thing about this long boat is that since you have so much boat to worry about, it forces you to be intentional with where you're going. You just won't fit into some eddies that you previously might have fit into in a smaller boat. Additionally, since it's so long, it exposes a bunch of surface area to the river when you get perpendicular to it. So if you make a mistake and you have the wrong edge or the wrong angle, it builds up really quickly and can push you and make it really hard to get right. So the thing that teaches you is that you end up needing to use your edges when you're doing things like turning and maneuvering, whereas in a smaller boat, just a stroke might have helped you turn. But this longboat really forces you to use your edges and expose more surface area or less depending on what you want to do. So I really like the fact that it makes me think harder about paddling, where I feel like something like my playboat, especially at this level, I could be facing whichever direction and still kind of moving the way I want to go. I don't have to think very hard about flipping over. I can brace up easily. So whereas that's a much more sort of free-minded, do whatever you want, don't have to pay too much attention kind of thing, this boat really locks you into what the river's doing and what you're doing. And how ideally you can use those two things together, what the river's doing and what you want to do, so that you don't have to spend the additional calories to force this boat to go where you want it to. Oh yeah, and the reason that I had to empty my boat there is just that this particular boat has had a lot of owners, and there's a tiny little hole right under your butt when you're paddling it, so it can end up filling up with water. And the thing about these big long boats is that you don't want to fill them with too much water because there's so many gallons that it can become like incredibly heavy and unwieldy. Although I will say that one time I was paddling this through Darkside Hole and my boat was like full of water, and it created this crazy ballast effect where I felt like I couldn't flip over. I was still buoyant because of all of the air in the boat, but I was also really heavy, almost with like a keel in the bottom. It was hilarious. I felt invincible. Very strange.
Go west!
So one thing that's kind of weird about this boat is that it's long and sharp, so it like pierces through waves, but it has so much rocker that if you're in a big wave train, your butt is only making contact with like, I don't know, 3 feet of boat, and immediately the rocker starts on either side. So there's this moment where you're piercing through the waves, but then when no waves are touching you, if one hits the bow or the stern of your boat, it can turn you pretty easily. And so it actually wants to be driven through those wave trains because there's these moments where you're between the waves and locked in, and then when no waves are touching you for a brief second, and then one hits you and kind of like changes the direction you're going. I don't know if that makes sense, but like basically it tracks great in a straight line, but you can't really stop driving it through a wave train without losing direction pretty easily because of all the rocker and how easily it turns. So as sometimes happens in a big group, we had a swim, and that's what I'm encountering here when I pull into this eddy. I'm just going to tie the boat to the quick release loop on the back of my rescue vest and paddle it across this wave train to the other side so the swimmer can get in. No worries, but remember, if you're going to tie something like a boat that can become heavy, become a pinning or snagging hazard, you want to do it in a way that you can quickly free yourself if you need to. That's what that quick release is for on a rescue vest. People sometimes put it over their shoulders, their cowtails, all kinds of stuff out there, but do not do something like this unless you know that the way you're attaching it to your body is not making a lethal hazard for yourself as you participate in a rescue.
I have to wait for that boat to clear the rapid.
After you, sir.
I just went far left down the other channel. I would not recommend it.
Okay. Bumpy. Woo! Nice. Oh, the big one. Yeah. Master blaster, straight down the middle.
I couldn't tell where he was going right. Like, was he going right?
It's just to avoid that huge booth at the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
Woo! Roy, I'm popping down an eddy. Speed demon line. I'm gonna go do this.
But I didn't do that. I left this eddy with one intention, which was to go down Maryland as fast as I possibly could in this fast, speedy race boat. But as I was leaving the eddy, I saw Paul on River Right out of the river. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, is there a safety problem? What's going on? And so I pulled over to talk to him. And at that point, people had already left the eddy above me, and I decided to go over and catch the eddy below Welcome Wave to make sure that I wasn't causing a traffic jam, that somebody had gone down ahead of me that I wanted to check on so I could get eyes on them. Just totally changed my plan halfway. This happens.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Rather than, yeah, go ahead, I probably should have just said, I'm going to peel out right now, or made some clear communication about what I was going to do. Just like driving, hesitation's no good. Pick something and do it really clearly so other people know how to anticipate your movements. This didn't screw Chad up. He's all good. We talked about it. Look, if you have a big ferry move to make, whether it's to get across to the eddy on the other side of the river for the Harry Ferry, or if it's just like I'm going to do and run Darkside Hole, start at the top of the eddy, which is the most upstream part of the eddy. That gives you more room to actually make the move. If something goes wrong, you still have a few feet to correct and get your ferry angle back. If you start at the bottom of the eddy, i.e. the most downstream part of the eddy, you just have less room to make the move. So that's why I'm attaining up this little bit. Okay, at this level, the Cleaver rocks are pretty exposed, and so is the island, obviously. So running Darkside Hole is putting this super long boat down kind of a narrow chute. One of those reactionary waves hits the side of my boat. There's a ton of surface area, so my bow goes right. And basically, I go down into the pour-over with the wrong edge. But this boat is so big that all I have to do is throw a huge brace and just lean the other way, and I come through it just fine. Now, you can basically go perpendicular to that pour over in this boat, and if you're leaning downstream, the river does all the work for you. One of the nice things about these longboats is that, yeah, they're challenging to paddle in a lot of ways, but also they've got more volume than your creek boat, and this one has a ton of rocker. So like, it is just trying to go over everything, eat everything. It doesn't want to go under the water. And so especially when it's cold, like I don't love getting my cute little face all cold. So like, it's kind of nice to paddle something that doesn't keep you underwater a lot in these winter temperatures. One other thing to note is that it's like a 60-pound boat. So the walk back, because we can't paddle the canal, we have to walk back to the parking lot, is a great workout. People say that kayaking is just glorified sitting, and for people who are really good at it, that's definitely true, but even those people have to carry their boats, so never forget that. We do plenty of work with our legs as well. Thanks for watching. I've got a ton more of these videos coming. Let me know what you want to see down below. And right after recording this, I'm off to Little Falls. I'm going to do 2 laps. The first in the Vanguard and the second in my playboat to see what kind of contrast that creates. But appreciate you all and talk to you soon.